Hello, welcome everyone to TWM Plus. This is TWM Talks. I'm Matt, and our guest today is James from Monopoly Events, who are bringing the For the Love of Wrestling convention to Liverpool on April the 23rd and 24th. Right. Hello, James.
Hello, thank you very much for having me on.
So just start with some basic questions about you and the wrestling in general. How long have you yourself been a wrestling fan?
Oh, myself probably from the late 80s, when Sky TV was first introduced into the UK. We were quite lucky. I think we got it in late 88. Yeah, sort of late 88, early 89. So that was sort of my introduction. I remember sort of just flicking over. That's back when WWF, obviously it was at the time, was on. It was on Sky One. The pay-per-views were shown on Sky Movies, and you could also get a little bit of other types of wrestling. I think Main Event was on Eurosport for some reason, or Sky. Yeah, I think Main Event was on Sky Sports. And then you could also pick up some random sort of like Mid-South wrestling as well on some of the more random sports channels. I remember one Sunday watching Wrestling Challenge, and it wasn't not long after the Texas Tornado had shown up in the WWF. And then I flicked over to Eurosport, K Sports, Al Jazeera Sports, something along those lines, and it was Kerry Von Erich, and I couldn't understand why. I was very young at the time, probably about 7 or 8. I couldn't really understand why he was on both places at the same time. It was very strange.
under such a slightly changed gimmick as well.
Yes, yeah. I was like, I know that guy. That's definitely him.
Yes, still looks the same. So do you have any particular favorite wrestlers? A lot of people's favorite time are sort of the people come into it when they were those ages, but is that the same for you?
Yeah, I think I think everybody sort of it's what you know what you know. It's sort of it harks back to me. I'm more of an old school fan. I'll still watch it. I certainly enjoy the pay-per-views. I sat down and watched the Royal Rumble this year, which I thought was good for a bit, and then completely terrible. But I'm much an old school fan. I've been sat watching. I realised it was sort of the end of February today, so I started watching the WrestleManias in order, which I like to do about this time of year. So I've been watching WrestleMania 1 today, which is quite good actually, which is quite cool. You sort of spot things that perhaps you've never spotted before. One of the things was that it's Doink, isn't it? Matt Bourne, who wrestles Ricky Steamboat in that one, which is quite a good little fact. Obviously, you got the Executioner and Tito.
Pre-Doink Matt.
Yeah, pre-Doink. Yeah. And obviously the opening match is the Executioner against Tito Santana, and it's Playboy Buddy Rose who's under the mask of the Executioner in that one. So yeah, I'm much more of an old school fan, and sort of if I hark back to sort of my sort of favourites throughout my fandom, it's been guys like Bret Hart is probably the number one for me, followed closely by people like Jake Roberts, Randy Savage, Kurt Hennig, those sort of people.
Okay, wonderful. Well, that leads on well to who are you most looking forward to meeting on April the 23rd, 24th that you maybe haven't met before?
Yeah, I mean, quite luckily I've managed to meet a few guys, but there's quite a lot coming this year and yet to meet. I mean, Lanny Poffo. Obviously, with being such a big Randy Savage fan, really want to sit down and hopefully at some point over the weekend I'll get to sit down and have a beer with Lanny and talk all things Randy, and obviously himself as well. But of course, Kurt Angle is obviously going to be a big meet. Trish Stratus is obviously going to be a fantastic guest as well. But then Bray Wyatt, obviously, we're really excited about, and Sting. Sting's someone that's been on my bucket list for a while, actually, and even though I've been to multiple conventions.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, been to multiple conventions. Obviously, we've had our own conventions. Sting was actually at one of our conventions, our Comic Cons a few years ago, but unfortunately I wasn't there. So we've been at ships in the night a little bit. So it's going to be good to sort of finally meet Sting, who's probably about as big a name as you get.
Yeah, well, he's sort of currently still working, isn't he? So he's both a legend of the past and a current star in a sense.
Yeah, I wonder if he is the longest serving active wrestler. He's certainly in the sort of the European and North American markets, but I can't imagine there's many people who've been doing it, and he's still currently active as long as he has.
Certainly at that level for the whole of his career as well.
Yeah, and that's a real testament to him. I mean, you don't get many people who manage to stay at the top their entire career. I mean, you know, pigs and troughs and all that type of things. But I mean, Sting's chosen his career path very, very well, very, very cleverly. And it's a testament, and it proves well that he was right all those years not to go to WWF, because he's managed to work his way around the industry. He's always been the guy wherever he's been. You know, even now he's still, even though he's probably in more of a sort of a managerial stroke valet role, he's still, you know, a force to be reckoned with. So no, credit to him. I'm sure everybody's looking forward to seeing Sting.
Oh, that's massive. Yeah. Well, I was just looking at your the list of announced guests that are on your website, and I don't know if that's how up to date it is, but even just the list that I'm looking at is incredibly stacked. Both members of Demolition, the Steiner brothers.
Well, we've unfortunately we've lost a few guests. We're in the process of getting things changed over on the website, because we did a big announcement. Unfortunately, we've lost a couple of people like Jeff Hardy and also Shawn Michaels, but then we've replaced them with you know, Bray Wyatt and Sting, and obviously we've got Eric Rowan as well now, so we're doing a bit of a Wyatt family reunion.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, because is Adam Scher as well.
Yeah, so we've got Adam Scher over there, we've got Eric Rowan, and obviously we've got Bray Wyatt as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a who's who of wrestling guests this year. And you know, we've got some really, really cool reunions as well. Obviously we've got the Money Inc. reunion, which is proving to be really popular. We've got the Wyatt family reunion again, which is really popular. We've got the Vince's Devils reunion, which is brilliant, which is Candice Michelle, Tori Wilson and Victoria. So we don't think that one's ever been done. So that'll be really, really cool. You know, we've got other ones. We've got the Grown Ass Women podcast, which is Mickie James, Victoria, and SoCal Val, which again is a really good one. And then we've got Mickie James and Trish Stratus, who we know had an absolute phenomenal feud back in the noughties. So again, we're going to do a duo pitch show for those guys as well. So yeah, loads and loads and loads of stuff going on. And one of the things that we all try and do is, you know, if you want to meet wrestlers, you can go to a number of large conventions around the world and you can meet wrestlers and you can get your picture taken with wrestlers. We try and do things a little bit differently. We try and focus all of our guests around reunions, around duos, or perhaps around prop builds. You know, if anybody's not familiar with prop builds, what we mean is a prop build, and it works across all convention genres. It's either like a prop, a stage, a product, a set for something. So, you know, like perfect one will be Bray Wyatt. So a prop build for him will be the Firefly Funhouse. You know, for Kurt Angle, it might be the
wonderful,
the milk truck, or it might be the Olympic podium, something like that. So yeah, and what that allows is that allows people who, you know, like myself, who've been around a long time and perhaps met a few of these guests in the past. You know, yes, I have met Bray Wyatt before, but I haven't met Bray Wyatt in the Firefly Funhouse. So that's a picture. So it gives people who've never met them the opportunity to meet them, but it also gives people who have met them before the opportunity to have a picture or a meeting that's perhaps a little bit more original than you would find at any other convention.
Yeah, that seems. I was looking through the your gallery of pictures from 2019, which was obviously it's the only one you've done before.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean,
unfortunately, because of the years in between.
Yeah, because I mean, we went big with 2019. I mean, it was the biggest wrestling convention in Europe. The response was phenomenal. We had some brilliant guests there, like the Undertaker's first European convention appearance, Bret Hart, Ric Flair, Rob Van Dam, Nash and Hall, those type of people, and that went. And it was to launch that big with the first event was a bit crazy, but fans responded to it phenomenally. And obviously then it just G'd us all up. I mean, literally as we, when we left there on the Sunday, we were ready to put on another convention. We were, all biting at the bone, ready to go. Unfortunately, COVID stepped in, which meant that it couldn't happen in sort of 2020 and 2021. But, what it has given us is it's given us 2 years of hunger to put on the best possible show this year.
Oh yeah, wonderful. Well, I was going to ask you 2 questions really that come out of that, which is, do you have any personal or not even personal, but favourite memories, moments from that 2019 event?
I suppose from a sort of a personal point of view, yeah, probably from my own, because I've got quite a big wrestling collection, all WWF branded. So I've got quite a phenomenal WWF branded collection, all in original boxes, all in original packaging. And I exhibited that at the first event, including a collection of pay-per-view chairs, which went down really well. And at one point, sort of Bret Hart came over to have a look at it, and that was sort of there was a little bit of a Bret Hart section within the collection, so Bret came over to have a look, and that for me was a real highlight. And luckily, someone caught it on camera as well, so I've got that picture. So yeah, years and years of collecting for Bret himself to come over and have a look was the real highlight for me.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah, that sounds wonderful. And then obviously with the 2 years out with pandemic and lockdowns and whatever, do you have any sort of thoughts on how that's affected this event and how you tried to work around anything to do with that?
Yeah, it's affected it massively. I mean, guests, some of the guests that unfortunately can't be with us this year, who we originally planned for, just simply can't come over. So it's massively affected the event. I'm thinking of people like Ken Shamrock, Raven. Both of those guys were really looking forward to coming over, and that's just not a figure of speech. I speak to their people quite regularly, and both of them were really excited about coming over. Unfortunately, because of the way things are in the States at the moment, they were just nervous about traveling. Obviously, they're both getting on a bit. They're both in a lot better condition than I am, obviously, but so they were both just worried about their health, worried about travel. So they decided they couldn't make it this year. So it's and then again, other things have changed. Things like Jeff Hardy leaving WWE means that he's no longer, fulfilling his booking. So yeah, massively everything's affected this one, and that's why. But we're determined to put on one hell of a show. And luckily, the team that we've got around us at Full Over Wrestling, they don't get knocked back by things like that. It's a challenge. We overcome it, and if anything, we try and put on a better show because of it.
Well, if anything, from the substitutions and the changes that you've already mentioned, it seems like what you say is completely correct. You are going to fix those issues as quickly as possible. Yeah,
exactly. Like, I mean, we lost Demolition, which was a huge loss, and that was going to be a particular highlight for myself. But we've replaced them with the New Age Outlaws, which they're such an equally legendary team. Now we're not replacing guest for guest. It'd be near impossible this week. Sort of 7 weeks to go, but we are still delivering a very high quality. I'd say that and I've been to wrestling conventions all over the world. I'm sure I'm biased, but I do think it's the best wrestling convention in the world.
Well, I can't argue with that. Just a general thing. Going back to the 2019 event, you had, was it a Future Shock put on a live show?
They did, yeah, and they're back this year again with.
And that was what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, they're back in 2022. They were a massive hit in our first year, and again, we didn't know how people would respond. You normally don't get live wrestling at the end of a wrestling convention like that, but we want it. And again, this is, I'll come back to it in a second, but yeah, Future Shock were incredible. They put on a brilliant show with some fantastic matches showcasing some of the UK's best talent. I'm talking about people like Lana Austin. I'm talking about someone like, Big Joe, those type of people. Who are, they are the future of the British wrestling scene, and people's that careers I've tracked since that event, because I find them really. Alexis Falcon was another one just who I found them really, really interesting. And then obviously we had a couple of surprises. So Hacksaw Jim Duggan took part in a match, which I know for the Future Shock guys was just an absolute joy. We had Jimmy Hart doing some ring announcing, which was fantastic. And then we had Pete Dunne turn up in the Battle Royal to clean house. And again, so it was brilliant for the Future Shock guys involved. They had some real career highs. It was brilliant for us as a promotion to be able to deliver on something like that with the guys at Future Shock, and obviously for the audience, they absolutely loved it. There was some huge pops throughout the night. So yeah, we're going to do it again this year, and who knows who might show up in the wrestling show this year.
I won't ask, but I had heard of the Jim Duggan appearance from one of the guys that was in that match recently, who definitely said it was a career highlight for him.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't believe he's, Jim Duggan's the age he is now, because he was still piling round. He's still got more energy in his little toe than most of us have in our entire body. He's a real guy, a really lovely guy, and an amazing guy to work with.
Oh, great. Oh, I'm trying to think if we've got anything else we haven't really covered yet.
So I'm thinking probably one of the things we can sort of cover on this is the is what do you actually get? Well, so probably one of the best things about For Love of Wrestling is the value for money aspect. And what I mean about that is, yes, of course, it costs for photos and costs for autographs, just like it does at any other convention. But what are you actually going to get for your entry ticket at For Love of Wrestling? And for me, that's why it's the best wrestling convention in the world. Because not only do you get your entry, but you get access to all of the prop builds. They're all included with your money. You get access to all of the exhibits. And again, they're all included your entry fee. But then you also get the Q&As. And the Q&As, for me, is where you get your real value for money. Simply because, over the course of the weekend, you're going to get 25 to 30 Q&As with some of the biggest stars, past and present. Now, if you imagine what a ticket costs you to an evening with event, for instance, it probably costs you 20 to 30 quid for an evening with event. You're going to get 20 to 30 of those over the course of a weekend for the price of your entry ticket, which is 20 quid. And then not only are you going to get that, but you also then get a live wrestling show from Future Shock on the Saturday night as well. And then not only do you get all of that, but you also get, obviously, to be under the same roof as 5,000 other wrestling fans over the course of the weekend, having the absolute time of your life. And it's an incredible event. So you're not going to find, and you're getting all of that for your entry price, which is 20 quid. I spoke to somebody not long after it was on the Sunday afternoon at the first event, and I said to him, I said, have you had a great time? He said, it's been the best weekend of my entire life. I said, oh my God. I said, who have you met? He said, absolutely nobody. So what have you done then? He said, I paid my money. He said, I came in here, I've sat down here. I said, I've watched the Q&As. I said, I've had a couple of pints. It's the best weekend of my life. And that's what that individual wanted to do. And that's what they could do with their entry ticket. So that's the sort of stuff you're going to get. But yeah, I mean, whether you're coming in a big group or whether, you're nervous about coming on your own, come down to For Love of Wrestling on your own. It's 5,000 people like you with the same interest as you. It will make you feel very, very welcome, and you'll make friends for life.
Yeah. Well, that's speaking as someone who regularly goes to shows on my own, knowing that lots of people do that for the convention as well is very positive step. Yeah,
it is. I mean, the plan was for it to obviously be the UK's biggest wrestling convention. Very quickly, it became Europe's biggest wrestling convention, and we know that because of we get a lot of people coming from all around Europe, Spain. Italy, obviously Germany's got a massive wrestling following. They come over in their droves, in their planefuls, to come to For Love of Wrestling, because it is regarded now as the number one event in Europe.
Oh, wonderful! So presumably going forward, of course, it'll be an annual event.
Yeah. God willing, as long as COVID doesn't come back or World War III doesn't kick off tomorrow, yes, we do hope it's going to be an annual event.
Well, that'll date this interview perfectly. But would you? So it's in Liverpool.
It is.
Was there any particular reason it was in Liverpool, and any possible ideas of it going anywhere else in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it may go to other cities. I mean, Liverpool's obviously, we've got one of our premier events, which is Comic Con Liverpool, which is obviously, again, it's one of the biggest in Europe, and that's always been really, really successful. Liverpool has got a great history with conventions, but it's also got a great history with wrestling. And, you know, the north of England has got a phenomenal history with wrestling. So it worked. And, you know, the venue that we use for Comic Con Liverpool is brilliant. The team down there are really, really great to work with. So it just ticked a lot of boxes. It's got great transport links. You know, it's got a big airport like Manchester nearby. It all just sort of worked. Will it stay in Liverpool? Who knows? You know, you never know. I mean, you never know how things might progress. But you know, it's not just that as well. I mean, we do have our other conventions, thinking, you know, for events like For Love of Horror, Comic Con Manchester. It's got 2 Comic Con Scotlands now, in Aberdeen and in Edinburgh. Comic Con Wales is this year, Comic Con Northern Ireland this year. You know, all those sorts of ones. We've got Comic Con Scotland Aberdeen in 2 weeks, actually. So for anybody who's listening, who's in that part of the world, come and see us. We've got Grado and Booker T as guests at that particular event. So
wow.
That's going to be good fun as well. Yeah, so we do try and get a wrestling guests at our other events if possible, because we know that there's a crossover between your sort of standard Comic Con audiences and your wrestling audience, and it's nice to cross the two.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm just looking at the Monopoly events list of all of your events in total, and I'm scrolling. Yeah. You guys do an awful lot of different, very varied things. So.
Yeah, we've got all the Comic Cons, and then all the more specific things like For Love of Wrestling, For Love of MMA, For Love of Sci-Fi, For Love of Horror. The horror one in particular has become, you know, one of the premier horror events. You know, it's a phenomenal event, and again, it's a nice little crossover there as well, because a lot of horror fans who, you know, I worked the horror event this year and lost count of the amount of people walking around in sort of wrestling themed horror t-shirts, Kane t-shirts, Bray Wyatt t-shirts, that sort of stuff.
Well, you potentially can get Bray Wyatt for the next horror convention if his film comes out.
Horror or Kane is someone who's been mentioned before. We thought Kane would be perfect for the horror convention. Or, you know, might go a bit more vague and get like a boogeyman or something.
So just on the Kane question, with your guests, do you have is there anyone you can't ask to come because of contracts, or is it just, do people deal with this sort of thing on their own?
We struggle with people who are dead. That's well. But you know, I say that in jest, but you'd be surprised how many questions we get in the inbox asking us if we can bring over people like the Ultimate Warrior and stuff like that. Bless them.
It's the Saudi super event. Booking,
quite kept up to date. I mean, there's 3 things really that we look for from a guest. Being alive is obviously the first one. Being popular is the second one. And being allowed in the country is the third, and probably one of the most important ones, because there are certain guests who, for whatever reason, have got into trouble with their demons along the way, and they're not allowed in the UK because they've served a custodial sentence for a certain amount of time, or whatever the paperwork is. So if they're allowed in the country, if they're alive, and if they're very, very popular, then they are very, very welcome at our event.
Fantastic. I mean, that's good to know, because there are so many times that sort of contract situations and things like that do stop people being able to come into various places. So it's nice that there are so few restrictions for who you can use. Yeah,
I mean, we're not tied to anybody. I mean, we've been accused in the past of because we've got a great relationship with WWE, people have accused us of not booking AEW guys or Ring of Honor guys or other things. That's simply not the case. We have a great relationship with all the promotions, but we're not tied or affiliated with any of them, which gives us the freedom to book who we want, when we want, which is why we've got MJF our event this year, which is why we've got Sting at our event this year, and you don't get any two bigger AEW names than those guys.
No, exactly. What else have I not asked? So I'm just looking at sort of different parts of the convention experience as a whole, just for people who don't usually go to these things. You've got Artists Alley, the art area.
Yes.
Is there anything you want to say about that, basically?
Yeah, so we try and do a little bit of a crossover. I mean, with all our conventions, as I say, and I've been to so many different conventions around the world. You know, a lot of conventions are, you know, WrestleCon's a perfect example. I love WrestleCon, and I'm looking forward to WrestleCon in sort of 6 weeks' time. Or even less than that, I mean, it's like 5 weeks' time. So I'm really looking forward to going back to WrestleCon. But WrestleCon is a pay your money, you walk over, you walk up to the wrestler, you say hello, you get an autograph, you get a picture, and and that's it. And they are doing some wrestling shows this year, because obviously I think they are trying to grow the brand a little bit more. But that's what you get at the Monopoly events conventions. Try and do a little bit more than that. So whether it be wrestling shows, whether it be having the Q&As going on so everybody can watch them all at the same time, whether it be having the exhibits, prop builds, whether it could be happening, you know, someone like, because we've got someone like Georgia Smith coming over, so she can show all of her dad's stuff over this year. I mean, that's something that we're doing, and it doesn't cost anybody any extra. Obviously, it costs us, or it costs Andy, the boss, but it doesn't cost anybody any extra to have that. And things like Artist Alley and the trading area as well. So we have like a marketplace, like a trading area that we try and theme. So obviously the horror one, it will be vaguely horror themed. The wrestling one, it will be wrestling stalls like toys and masks and people like that. And yeah, you know, Artist Alley. So if there's anybody who wants to attend our events who perhaps makes things like from a craft world, or who does sort of wrestling themed comics and stuff like that. So, you know, we have or wrestling artists, because we know there's, you know, that's big business now. If I think of like Schamberger or Hal Haney or someone like that, they're the sort of people we would hope to have at our Artist Alley. But again, at the moment, it's getting people to travel. So yeah, there'll be Grant Perkins is someone who's worked for WWE Comics, and I think he's coming to our event this year. So yeah, anybody, we try and think anything. Anyone who's got any connection to wrestling at all is welcome at our events.
Oh, I think that's a brilliant tagline at the end there. And, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Because
no, just I suppose really
it's been interesting listening to you.
Yeah, probably the main thing is just how do people get hold of us. So if you want to get hold of us, we're obviously the easiest place and probably the most common place people get in touch with us is Facebook. So search for the Love of Wrestling. You will find a page and a group. Don't worry, they are connected. The page is for us, obviously our main page for all our advertising or our normal day-to-day stuff. The group is obviously the place where people come and talk. You'll know they're connected. The Facebook page has got about, I think, nearly 50,000 followers now. The group's got like 12 or 13,000 followers now, so you'll know you're in the right place. They've both got our logo on there as well. We're obviously on Instagram and Twitter as well. But if you want to buy tickets, the easiest place to find the tickets is to go on to www.fortheloveofwrestling.co.uk, and from there you'll find all your ticket links for entry and also for your autograph and your pictures. And you'll also find tickets for things like the after party. So Saturday's going to be a crazy day this year. Saturday we're going to do the convention from 9 till about 5:30, and then we're going straight into the free Future Shock wrestling show, which is probably going to be from about 6 o'clock till about 8 o'clock, and then bang, straight from there we'll go into the after party over at Camp and Furnace, where we're going to dance the night away and completely embarrass ourselves, which is going to be good. So, and all the guests are invited to the after party. We know that a few of them showed up last time. I think perhaps Kevin Nash, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and Party Marty Jannetty showed up at the last one. So you never know who's going to show up. So yeah, come down, come and make a weekend of it, and come and have some fun.
Wonderful. Thank you, James, for chatting to us today. To me.
No problem at all.